Chapter 2.4 is linear functions. Now, we're just briefly going to review one concept about linear functions, that is the slope. Okay, but it's expected that you do know what determines a linear function, how to graph it, right? All this information, and really you should already know this information too. We're just going to quickly review it. Okay, so if you need to review on your own time information about linear functions, see that you do that. So just like circles, the only difference in one line and any other line, other than its location, is its slope. By the way, just using the word line means it's straight. I don't have to say straight line. If it's not straight, we don't call it a line. We would call it a curve, right? So line automatically implies we're talking about a straight line. And the slope is a number that tells us the direction a line is slanting from left to right, as well as how much slant there is to the line. Remember, we read a graph just like we read English, from left to right. Here's our formula for the slope. Right, so you can think of it as your y's over your x's, rise over run. And here's the specific formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I've got to have 2 points to use this formula. And these are just talking about the y coordinates and the x coordinates. In other words, if I'm trying to find the slope of the line passing through each pair of points, I just plug into my formula. Okay, so y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Make sure you account for all of your negatives and the minus in the formula, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So this is negative 8 plus 1. And negative 2 minus 4. So the slope of this line that goes through those 2 points is 7/6. Okay, same thing again. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So negative 1 minus 6 is negative 7. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. Never ever leave a 0 in the denominator anywhere, remember? So we call these what? Of course, undefined. We call this an undefined slope. And again, along with all the information you should know about linear equations, you automatically need to know that graph is a vertical line, and it has the equation x equals, in this case specifically, x equals negative 8. So just prerequisite information that you need to already know. One more time, plugging into the formula. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Negative 5 plus 5, 0. Negative 12 minus 6, negative 18. So don't forget, write that as 0. Don't leave it 0 over negative 18. It can be simplified further, just like I don't want to leave negative 7 over negative 6 or 3 over 6. So that is 0, which I need to know represents the graph of a horizontal line and the equation y equals negative 5. So if these things weren't just very familiar to you, you may need to, on your own time, review information about linear functions. Okay, there's 4 things that can happen if you have a straight line. Just for emphasis, use that word straight there. Okay. The line can rise from left to right, decrease, be perfectly flat. Imagine that's perfectly flat. I know that's not even a straight line, but we're going to use our imagination. or be perfectly vertical. Again, we read graphs from left to right. So if I think of this graph as going in this direction, it is increasing. In other words, it has a positive slope. This graph is decreasing or has a negative slope. This graph isn't sloping at all, it's perfectly flat, right? A horizontal line has no slope. And a vertical line, it is so steep, we consider that undefined. To find the slope of a line from its equation, what do we do? I'm sure you already know that. Yes, solve it for y. And then the slope is the coefficient of the x term. So if I were to solve this equation for y, I would have negative 5y equals negative 2x plus 4. Divide everything by negative 5. Solving for y. And once it's in this form, the coefficient of the x term is my slope. So I know immediately that my slope is 2/5. Likewise, I can tell my y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? Exactly. The y-intercept from our equation y equals mx plus b, right, is the point 0, negative 4/5. Okay, so refresh yourself on linear functions, their graphs and equations, and really be familiar with their slopes, how to find the slopes, how to interpret the slopes, etc.